What's going on, everybody? Aidan with Birds vs. Boys here, coming to you for the final game day reaction show of the Eagles 2021 season. They go down to Tampa Bay and they lose 31-15 to the Buccaneers in a game that never really felt too close. Before we get into it, as always, please subscribe. The show doesn't stop here for sure. A lot of you may have found us originally by searching our draft content, and with the outcome of today's games, both the Eagles and the Cowboys will be shifting to a lot of draft content from here on out and looking forward to next year. So please subscribe to the channel because, like I said, won't stop here. So let's get into the game. That was it. The Eagles are a playoff team. They are a good team. The Buccaneers are a Super Bowl contender, and they are a great team. And it was obvious from about the minute that game began that one team was clearly better than the other and more talented than the other, and just all around just a better team. One team, the Eagles, looked like they had 29 people making their playoff appearance, and the Buccaneers looked like a team where most of that core is coming back from the previous season where they won a Super Bowl. And it felt that way from the beginning. It felt that way on defense. It felt that way on offense. It felt that way in pretty much every position group that you could imagine. The Eagles lost. So there wasn't one play where you could go here or there. It wasn't like the Cowboys game where it's like, hey, maybe if we don't run the ball with 14 seconds and no timeouts, maybe we win. No, the Eagles never really had that opportunity. They were just the team that was there and in the way of a true Super Bowl contender. It was good versus great, and it felt that way throughout. Let's start on the defensive side of the ball because that's really how this game started, where the Bucs were able to drive right down the field and start this game 7-0. So again, the Jonathan Gannon thing. So it just felt like there was soft coverage on defense for most of that game, or at least in the first half. Later on, they started to pick it up in terms of getting pressure on Brady. They had 4 sacks on the day. They had 3 straight third down sacks, which kind of saved them, and that pressure finally mounted, and they started to finally get stops. But in the early going, it was back to what we saw earlier this season, where you're looking at the completion percentage for the quarterback, and you're like, how is this guy completing 90% of his passes? They remarked on the broadcast that was the highest Brady's completion percentage had been since he played the Eagles in Week 6. So it's, again, this soft coverage that you just don't really understand. And speaking of not really understanding it, I'm sure we've all been in a position where, whether it's at school or something else at work or just in society as a whole, where there's somebody who everyone deems attractive. And then you're just sitting there and saying, I just don't get it. What is it? What am I missing? Why does everyone else find this person attractive except for me? That's Eagles fans right now with Jonathan Gannon and the coaching searches that are going on and people wanting him to be a head coach. He's been a hot name since last year. And we were so excited because people were saying, listen, he'll be good, but he'll be so good you won't have him around for a while. He's that good. Then you get into the games and you're like, this is the easiest football has ever been for some of these professional athletes against his defense. And you're looking around and you're like, on paper, our defensive talent is pretty solid. Why is this happening? There are much worse defenses in the league. And I just came back to that again today where you're like, this guy got coaching interviews for head coaching positions this week. How? What are we missing as Eagles fans with this guy? But gladly, if the Denver Broncos would like this guy, feel free. Bring him back for a second interview if today didn't scare you away. If you see something you like, be my guest. Best of luck, pal. On offense for the Bucs, again, they are more talented. We're down a few guys, Chris Godwin and Antonio Brown, obviously. Won't be seeing him anytime soon. So their main weapon at this point, receiving-wise, is Mike Evans, and I thought they did a phenomenal job of moving him around to create mismatches and getting him away from Darius Slay. Darius Slay is a fantastic cornerback. He should have been an all-pro this year, and honestly, he's just been stout for the Eagles all season. It's one of the best cornerback seasons we've seen from the Eagles in quite some time, probably since that Lito Shepherd era in the early 2000s where they had a great secondary with like Bobby Taylor, Troy Vincent, everybody like that. That's the kind of season we're having from Darius Slay. So the Bucs did a great job of saying, all right, here's our wide receiver 1, and it's clear. let's get him away from their CB1s. They lined him up in the slot a lot. They were trying to get Darius Slay to move around. And there were a few times where Stevie Nelson and Avonte Maddox were matched up on Mike Evans. And they just tried to get their best weapon away from our best weapon. They did a great job of that. Brady, as always, did a great job of spreading the ball around. There just were times where the defense looked lost, But once they started to settle in, it wasn't that bad. We'll get to it in a little bit, but I think the fumble on the muff punt really just deflated their sails. It was 17-0, but they had really settled in. We talked about it. 4 sacks, and they were constantly getting pressure, getting it on third down when it mattered most, and doing it without Josh Sweat, which was really impressive. Ryan Kerrigan showed up today on the way out because on that one-year deal, thanks for showing up in week 18. It's like the guy who doesn't help with the group project and then shows up for the final presentation. That's what Ryan Kerrigan did today. But they did settle down and they were getting stops. And you're saying to yourself, down 17-0, we're going to have great field position here. We just got to put something together on offense to help our defense. So they really settled in and started to at least get Brady a little bit flustered. And I think the wind just went out of their sails because the offense was not helping them in any way, shape, or form. So to get to the offense, this is where I think you're going to have to see as we move into the offseason. We're going to have a 5-month conversation about whether the Eagles should try to trade for Russell Wilson or Deshaun Watson or someone of that nature, more proven in the league than Jalen Hurts, because let's be honest with ourselves, he was not good today. It was one of the more abysmal quarterback performances that we've ever seen, and it's unfortunate. I still do believe that he has earned the right to come back next year and be QB1 again. But and this will probably be a repetitive theme with the show today, but we're ahead of schedule, but still a long way to go. And I think that's how you feel about Jalen Hurts. He showed a lot this year in terms of improving as a quarterback. He's clearly a great leader, and we knew that he was a good dual threat with his legs. But you saw today the next steps that need to happen where he just didn't make good enough throws in key moments and missed guys. The problem with Jalen Hurts has the vision of a greyhound at a racetrack. It's just not really seeing much. It's just going straight, That's how you feel about Jalen Hurts. He missed Quez Watkins. Dan Orlovsky kind of brought it down or broke it down on a little clip on Twitter and pretty much said, hey, he did everything right on this play. His eyes were in the right place. And then he just completely missed Quez Watkins. And he went through his progressions and he shifted and he was moving his feet. And then he just misses Quez Watkins totally wide open, which would have been a touchdown. And there were a few plays today where it felt like that, where even the broadcast remarked like, yeah, the guy was there. I don't know what he was waiting for on the throw. He's just kind of sitting there. And that has got to be the next step for him because he's got to be able to make those throws. Some of them seem tough, but these are throws that an NFL player needs to make. And in a playoff game where every down matters, and we've seen that in some of these games so far, every single play. We've had 2 one-possession games with the Bengals and the Raiders, another game in the 49ers and the Cowboys. And it's just like every throw starts to matter. And when you have 4, 5, 6 throws where you're either throwing behind the guy, overthrowing the guy if you beat a guy deep, which we saw, there were a lot of times today where he just let it fly and it was too high. Just couldn't bring it down and just flat out missing guys, which was a shame. It was a shame because now you thought for the past 2 months or so, okay, Jalen Hurts is the guy. This guy is clearly shown that he can be a valuable NFL franchise quarterback who can get you into the playoff games, win you playoff games, get you to a Super Bowl. Then you walk away today and you're like, what the hell did I just watch? What happened to him today? And, playing against a better defense and not playing as bad a defense as we've had the 2 months obviously play a factor. So now you start to, I guess, not worry, but the doubt creeps back into your mind if that's the guy. And I'm sure that'll be the conversation for the next 3-4 months here in Philadelphia through free agency, through the draft, and we find out what happens with the future of some of these other guys in the league. I think what still holds true and what has held true since they drafted Carson Wentz in 2016. And honestly, it's held true since Jeremy Maclin walked in free agency and we released Deshaun Jackson. There needs to be enough dynamic playmakers that any quarterback could survive in this city. And right now, they do not have enough. And for a long time, they have not had enough. You want to find out if this quarterback is good or not? Fine. Give him every possibility to thrive. And the Eagles haven't been able to do that. They hit on Devonta Smith. And the other thing with Devonta Smith today, he didn't get a target for the majority of that game, for like a half of that game, and then they weren't targeting him. Again, ahead of schedule, but a long way to go. Nick Sirianni, you got to get your playmakers involved. You saw what the Bengals did yesterday. They were just like, we're going to force feed Jamar Chase the football. He is going to get 10 targets today at the very minimum. And if we lose doing it, then fine. We lost doing it. But they won because he's an incredible talent. That's what the Eagles should have been doing with Devonta Smith. But he really is your only wide receiving playmaker. You obviously have Dallas Goedert as the tight end too. So you've got two, but beyond that, you just don't have enough dynamic playmakers. So the saying always goes that there's two sides of every story, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle. That's how you got to feel about Jalen Hurts right now. So was he inaccurate? Did he miss people on throws? Did he miss people throwing the ball and with his eyes? Yes, absolutely. But also, the Bucs were putting about what felt like 9 people in the box, and it felt like they had 15 people on the field given their speed. They were just like flat out, we're not going to let you run the ball because we need this guy to make throws with his arms, and we don't trust your receivers to make plays for him. And that's exactly what happened. So I think going into this offseason, it will again be imperative, if you want to see the quarterback succeed, to get more talent around him. That was proven again true today. You're on the right track. You're ahead of schedule. You hit on your pick with Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert has worked out after trading Zach Ertz and him getting the full-time role. Now expand on that. Get a wide receiver 2, get wide receiver 3, get more help for these guys. That is the next step. You're ahead of schedule, but a long way to go. The reason why we need more dynamic playmakers, let's just call it as it is. You know, it's you don't want to rag on people. You don't want to just bully people online and cyberbully or whatever you want to call it. That Jalen Reagor is a pathetic bust. It is embarrassing. He can't do a single thing right. It's a silver lining for him, as I've seen a lot of commercials for the USFL coming back, which is great because then he'll have a job after this. He is not an NFL player. It was a franchise-altering bust is what he is. He doesn't help you as a wide receiver 2, opposite of Devonta Smith like you'd like. He doesn't help you in deep threat situations because Quez Watkins has filled into that role and what Jalen Reagor was supposed to do. He doesn't help you on special teams. His fumble today was what changed the course of that game and really took the final wind out of the sails for the defense and completely just killed any momentum you could have had. Anytime the ball is around him, bad things happen. There is no way he can be on this team next year. No shot. Again, you don't want to kill the guy. You don't want to verbally abuse the guy, but let's just be honest with one another. Franchise-altering bust. Not a bust, franchise-altering bust. Philadelphia, as fans, we've had to sit through a lot of bums in our sporting teams. Speaking of the biggest bum of all time, the biggest bust, you could have like 5 or 6 honorary nominees from the Phillies this past season alone. But Jalen Reagor is far and away the worst that they've ever had, which is really saying something because J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, in terms of just all-time bust that you never want to see again play sports in this city, is probably top 10 as well. That crosses all sports, not just the Eagles. That is how bad it is. You saw how Brandon Ayuk helped the 49ers today. Chase Claypool for the Steelers this year. Michael Pittman for the Colts. All of these guys drafted after Reagor, and that doesn't even mention he who must not be named for the Minnesota Vikings, who is on pace statistically with Randy freaking Moss. They need playmakers because they screwed up, and he's a franchise-altering bust, and I think this was the final chapter today, so it's probably the last time we're going to talk about it, so it's might as well get the rant out now while we have the chance, because I don't think it needs to be said because we shouldn't be doing this rant again next year. This should be the final time I'm talking about how bad of a bust that was. So, again, ahead of schedule, but a long way to go. Dallas Goedert played well. Once they finally got the ball to Devonta Smith, he played well. The front four played well. You have guys on the offensive line. You overachieved, to say the least, this year, considering a lot of people expected you to be bottom dwellers in the league with the Jets, the Jags, the Texans, everything like that, and you end up making the playoffs. So you're ahead of schedule, but you clearly have a lot of pieces that you need to put into place in order to succeed. Again, ahead of schedule, and it just feels great to be here knowing what you need compared to last offseason as we were sitting here at 4-11-1 in a total embarrassing mess, not knowing where the franchise was going to go and being at that crossroads, not only a quarterback with that coach in the front office and everything like that. And you start to have this stability now, or you have this core of young players that you like. You have an offensive line that is good. You obviously have questions there too with the futures of Jason Kelce and Brandon Brooks. So we'll see how that is. But you have pieces, you have a direction, and you know how to get yourself to that next level. You've seen what the next level is today. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So you have to say to yourself this offseason, how do I get myself from where we are to where we want to be, which is the Buccaneers? Might I recommend one thing that I'm looking for this offseason? The Bucs, the speed that they play at, it was not the speed that the Eagles play at. It was like if you played high school sports, they'd let the JV scrimmage against the varsity team just to kind of tune things up. And if you're on the JV team at the time, you're like, wait a second, that is not the speed that I remember playing. It's another great example. If you've ever played Guitar Hero, play it at the fastest speed possible, and then you go down and play at a slower speed, and you're like, oh, that works. That now I kind of understand the keys because everything's slowed down for me. That's kind of where the Eagles are at. The Bucs play at expert speed on Guitar Hero, and the Eagles are playing at medium speed. Linebackers especially. So that's kind of what I'm looking for. Getting faster on defense. The sideline to sideline guys, you've seen how it paid dividends, not only for the Bucs, but you saw with Micah Parsons on the Cowboys as well. So getting speed, infusing this team with more athleticism, speed on defense at the linebacker position, speed on offense with wide receivers. And even if you get a big body receiver, that would help as well. But that's kind of where you need to go. You know the pieces you need to fill. You know the ones that you already have. I think Jalen Hurts has earned himself a second season here. So we'll see where they go. That we've talked about it before. At one point in this season, 3 first-round picks was the only thing that we were excited about. We'll be slotted at 15, 16, and 19. So you won't have the cap space hit from your previous quarterback who's playing for somebody else making $34 million for another team. Jalen Hurts, on a very team-friendly contract, especially quarterback-wise in the NFL, will allow you a lot of possibilities. And I'm sure we'll spend the next few months going over them with guys like Allen Robinson, Calvin Ridley, guys that are going to be coming available. But there are clearly opportunities there. You're not boxed in like some of these teams like the Giants who just don't have the cap space. You have the draft picks. You have the draft picks. You have the cap space. You have a foundation. That's where you should be. So you're ahead of schedule, and it's time to make that next step because you still got a long way to go. Fill in what you need to fill in, kind of like what you did after Wentz's rookie season, and improve that team to make them a Super Bowl contender again. You've got the foundation, so let's keep growing. Thank you to everybody who listened to one of these this year. It took quite the turn. Usually these were rants about how upset we were about losing and looking at draft pick position, and then in the end, we ended up having a playoff season. So it's sad that it's over, and it's sad that we'll stop doing these, but it was a fun year. It turned out to be a fun year. Cap it with the loss, but obviously there's a lot of room for growth next season. So thank you to everybody who listened. And again, keep following us. Kind of the offseason may start for the Eagles, but it really doesn't stop for us. We're going to keep going. Draft content, free agency content, everything you can think of. So appreciate everybody who listened this year. Thank you again, and we will see you for the offseason shows.
Chris Hansen here, and I'm going to need you all to take a seat right over there and check out Birds versus Boys.
I think you're completely right here, and I hate it.
Yep. Hey, idiots. Stop doing dumb things. I got 2 phones. Upside alert. Upside alert. I might go insane.
I think you're already there.
There's no hope. Hope is gone. If this was an AFC North podcast, we'd be done in 15 minutes. Bob Hope. I'm going to drink bleach. That is?
Be the team you promised me you were going to be this year!
This is the Consciously Hopeful podcast.
I'll be watching.